video for Benny. When you come to fit the scales to your knife, just roughly place your knife onto the scales, and then drill a hole, fit a pin into that hole like that, drill the next hole, fit a pin into that hole like that, and then drill your final hole. Fit a pin into that holds it all rigid, then draw the outline, and then cut that outline out on a bandsaw, or carefully by hand using a coping saw. Make sure you don't go over the line, cut on the outside of the line, and then you tidy that bit up later. What you're left with, Benny, are your scales cut out like that. Now, to match the fronts, you've got to do the front portion before you fit the scales to the knife, otherwise you can't get to it. And this is how I do that. Now I've got to sand both these front faces here. I've got to be sanded level and flush. Now this is a tapered tang, so I've obviously allowed for the taper in the scales. So I've got to be careful how I do that. But this is what I do. I decide whereabouts I want the scales to finish on the knife. So I want them to finish maybe just about a couple of mil back from where they are, from where that one is there. So I'm going to sand this flat surface a couple of mil back. For this job I use this rotary disc sander. It's a professional machine, but you don't have to have a machine as expensive as one of these. You can go for something much cheaper. Lots of these little hobbyist sanders. This is a good sander actually. I've had it for a couple of years and it's had a lot of work. 3 years actually. It's had a lot of work. And they come with this attachment on the side, and that's perfectly good enough. Just a quick check to make sure it's all vertical. If your machine's got a guide, then I recommend you use a guide. Set the table up for 90 degrees and then use your guide at the angle that you want, and then that way that'll keep everything through. As you can see, I've drilled up the front face, the front edges now, and it's time to put the chamfers on. I put a 40-degree bevel on each side now. You can either do it with the two pieces together, or you can separate them and do them singly. And obviously you bevel down to just before the fibre liners. So again, using the table at 90, and then I've adjusted this to the angle that I want. I can then rest my workpiece in there and offer it up to the disc at the correct angle. That's the front edges chamfered now, look, Benny, and they're a bit rough, and like all things in knife making, the end product relies heavily on a bit of hand finishing, so I've got to now sand the scratch marks out and get it all just right, doing it by hand. And I just use 400 grit cloth back to abrasive to do that on a flat surface. Once you're happy you've removed all the scratches, then it's a good time to give those front chamfers a polish, because you know it's harder to do it when they're on the knife. So I just use for that my bench grinder with a polishing mop on it. A little bit of wood compound. And then it's tricky with one hand, but give it a polish. That's basically the process, Ben. You're left with scales that match at the front then, and they're polished and finished almost anyway. But don't forget that before you put the scales onto the knife, to randomly drill holes through the liners. Actually, I always drill through the liners into the wood a little bit. A bit of belt and braces approach to it really. It allows the epoxy to, gives more surface area for the epoxy, and it allows it to make a direct contact to the wood as well through the liners. Don't forget to key up the actual tang of the knife as well. There goes my phone. Hello?
Hello, Sandy.
Hello? Is that Noel? Hi Noel. That was my friend Noel. Sorry about the jumper. Dog's got hold of it, I think. So anyway, that's your that's how it should look, Benny. When you offer it up to the knife, just a quick assembly, just a dry assembly. I can see it's all going to fit together nicely, and you can see the front of the scales match up perfectly. But also make sure you get your scales flat as well. Obviously I use a level surface and put some sandpaper and then backwards and forwards on the surface in a circular motion to get the inside flats of the scales perfectly flat, so they'll marry up with the tang of the knife perfectly. There you go, that's how I do it, Benny. Hope that helps. Here's another set of scales I'm working on, Benny. I haven't polished the fronts of these yet, but if I haven't said it already, just make sure you get them perfectly flat. You want no light shining between. There's two sets of scales there, you see, so get them perfectly flat, like that, so there's no light. There, you see that? The way to do that, I use a flat plate. This is just an aluminium quench plate, a flat surface, and you want to place your sheet of sandpaper. I'm holding the camera so I can't show you, but equally press on it in equal directions, and it's a round circular motion. If you go backward and forwards, it doesn't seem to get them flat. I find if you go circular motions, that seems to do it. So that's about all there is to it. Here they are, Benny. The knive's glued up now. See what I done, I use these clamps, but you don't want to put the clamps on very tight, just enough to pinch the scales in. If it's all flat, you don't need much pressure, otherwise you'll squeeze all the glue out. And then I always stand them up on their end like that. That way any epoxy's going to drip down and not drip onto the blade where it's hard to clean it up. So I hope that helps you, Benny. Send me an email if you get stuck with anything. Pardon the pun with the epoxy there.